Reclaim America!
Sigh. So masked members of the white nationalist group, Patriot Front, marched in formation outside Washington, D.C.'s Union Station on July 4th, carrying U.S. and Confederate flags and chanting as they moved through the nation's capital. The demonstration drew widespread attention and renewed concerns about the visibility and organization of extremist groups during the 250th anniversary of the United States independence. And the footage sets the stage for a much broader conversation about history, symbolism, public spaces, and the competing narratives of who this country belongs to. I am Dr. Haydée Brown.
And I'm Dr. Sonya Sloan.
And we are AYA,
Black and Brown Women Disruptors in Healthcare and Beyond. So today we say happy 250th America, but we're going to talk about a virus, not the virus that you guys think of. We're talking about a virus that this is killing people in this country every day. We're talking about the oldest pre-existing condition that America holds.
And let us do the math on this birthday. So 250 years ago, this country declared that all men are created equal. On that same soil, on that same day, Black people were property, enslaved, bought and sold. So when they throw a party for 250 years of freedom, understand what that number actually holds, because for most of it, we were not free. The founding and the enslavement were not two different Americas. They were the same America at the same time. And that is this country. And racism is the pre-existing condition that it was built with. And one thing this country has always done is to survive it, right? But without any accountability and refusing to look at the body, refusing to count the dead.
Yeah, because if you don't look, right, there's no crime. And if you don't count, then there's no crisis. So we've said this before when we were talking about the measles, when we've talked about so many other things. Just hide it, sweep it under the rug, right? But we've said it specifically about Black mothers dying in childbirth. And today we're saying it about a young man in Mississippi that on the 4th of July, an 18-year-old African-American kid known as Nolan Wells got on a boat with his all-white friends to celebrate the holiday, 250 years in America, right? Off the coast of Mississippi. And this kid was a great kid. He was a college kid. He was a wide receiver, and his high school coach said he was so happy-go-lucky. But that evening, he didn't come home, you guys. And today, we are talking about this. It's all in the press. It's all over the media because it's another sign of what is going on in America today. And so 2 days later, his body rolls up and on Horn Island, and no one knows what happened.
Now, I need to be very careful here and very clear because we are physicians, and the truth is the whole point of this show. So we do not yet know how Nolan Wells died, right? The investigation is ongoing. The medical examiner has not released a cause of death. There is a video circulating online, and authorities have not confirmed what it shows or whether it is even connected to his death. So we are not going to tell you something we cannot prove. And that's just not what we do. But what we will show you is the devastating toll on parents who did everything right to protect their child. Let's roll the clip.
His body washed up with the tide on Sunday. Why would it come on Monday? It's not adding up. And that is the problem when you think about the history of Mississippi.
Yeah, so there are so many questions that need to be answered. And is there anything you'd like people to know about Nolan? What would you like them to know about your son?
The grief that a mother and father have to sit through an interview to talk about the loss of their child, not because they want to, but because they're trying to bring light to something, another injustice in America, that under these horrific conditions, they have to sit and be very transparent. Again, we don't know exactly all of the reasons why this child was killed or murdered or drowned. We don't know. But what I can say is that Nolan's family said not on our watch. They looked at the state of Mississippi and said, we're going to do our own autopsy. And we as physicians, we completely understand because there's some things that can be swept under the carpet, They commissioned their own autopsy. And because of that, they wanted to make sure that the official record could be trusted when it all goes down about the truth for their child.
Their attorney, Ben Crump, stated in an article, quote, "The national outcry and the family's insistence on full transparency directly invoked the painful parallels to the state's history of racial violence, including the lynching of Emmett Till in 1955, end quote. So let's pause for a moment. Let me give you the background here because it matters. In 1955, Emmett Till was a 14-year-old Black boy from Chicago visiting family in Mississippi. A white woman accused him of grabbing her in a store and whistling. Days later, Emmett Till was tortured, murdered, and pulled from a river, so badly beaten that his own family could only identify him by his father's ring.
And his mother did something that changed this country today. She actually held an open casket funeral. She made sure that the world was going to look and see what they had done to her son. And that image helped launch the civil rights movement. Essentially, it put a fire under people. So the two men who killed him were acquitted in about an hour, hearing, but later they did confess for money that no one ever held them accountable to. And so that casket, you guys, that we're talking about, where Emmett Till is lying today, it's in a museum in Washington, D.C.
So let's go back to Nolan Wells, missing on the 4th of July of this year, 2026, later found in the water off of Horn Island, Mississippi. Now, his family requested an independent autopsy paid for by former NFL player Colin Kaepernick, civil rights, social activist, and had the body moved out of the state of Mississippi to be examined. Now, listen, this is a medical decision. It's also a statement, and it says that I do not believe the people whose job it is to read my child's body, that they will actually read it honestly. Yeah. And the family's attorney, Ben Crump, said the quiet part out loud. He said, "This is the state where Emmett Till was lynched." And he's not wrong, right, Dr. Sloan?
No, not at all. It's just history repeating itself, right? So when a Black family says we don't trust the system to tell the truth about their child's body, this country, it likes to call it that we're being paranoid. We're calling the race card again. But as physicians, we call it data. There's a term in medicine. It's called weathering. And it was coined by a public health researcher named Arlene Garamos. And this book that you guys should have, it's called Weathering. It describes the chronic exposure of racism that goes on to the human body over time. The high blood pressure, the inflammation, the physical wear and tear on living under constant threat in America. It shows up in our patients. It shows up in our labs. It's measurable. It's something that Dr. Brown and myself deal with every day.
Racism is not just a feeling, right? It is that clinical exposure. And we've said it before on this show, your zip code, your treatment, whether a doctor believes the pain you say you are in, those are clinical variables and they fall along racial lines. And here's what people get backwards. Race is a social construct. So the same person that's called Black in this country might be described a completely different way somewhere else. But the racism that's experienced here is real. And the body cannot tell the difference in terms of the stress. It just absorbs the damage.
And as a Black woman in this country, all Black women in this country, we're 2.5 times to 3 times more likely to die having a child compared to a white woman, right? We've talked about these numbers before. Across income, it's different. Across education, it's different. And Black women, even with doctorate degrees, are more likely to die of childbirth, while a white woman that finished, high school only can still live and her child thrive. So what's the problem? What's the issue here? And the body keeps score, but the CDC is removing those panels and those dashboards to keep that score.
So, now to connect this all, Emmett Till's mother, Mamie, did one thing that changed history and sparked the civil rights movement. She opened her son's casket and she said, "Let the world see what they did to my boy."
And that's an image that you will never forget, that picture.
And she turned her son's body into evidence that this country could not look away from. And that really started and put a fire under everyone about the injustice. And so on the 4th of July in this year, 2026, in the capital of the United States, about 1,000 people ran from a thunderstorm that took shelter inside a building. That building was the National Museum of African American History and Culture, the NMAHC. Now, on the lower level of that building, behind glass, sits a casket. It's the casket that held the body of the 14-year-old boy, Emmett Till. And the people sheltering above that casket had actually come to celebrate, right, 250 years. In that same weekend, in the same city, that those men in masks marched throughout Washington carrying Confederate flags. All these things are interconnected.
Yeah. So yeah, happy 250th, America. The irony, the unmitigated gall that so many minorities are feeling right now, specifically African Americans. And I'm going to say it, for those MAGA supporters to sit in refuge only feet away from the body of Emmett Till, his casket in this museum, is just surreal, you guys. So let me remind you that this is the same museum who sheltered all these 1,000 people on the 4th of July, celebrating MAGA stuff, right? 250 years. The same museum that Trump administration spent the whole last year trying to sanitize and destroy our history as African Americans, which is American history. Don't forget that. The Executive Order 14253, titled Restoring Truth and Sanity to America's History, that was signed by the president on March 27th, 2025. That executive order accused the Smithsonian of being divisive, the ideology being divisive. So the order instructed J.D. Vance, the vice president, in his role as a Smithsonian Board of Regents, to work towards eliminating what the administration called improper and divisive anti-American ideology from the Smithsonian Museum. But we're not talking about the Confederate flags that were marched through with white supremacists on the 250th anniversary on the Mall. So a review to strip the exhibit of what they call improper content. Let's be very, very clear. And for those that are sitting in the back, let me just remind you, they have the right to try to fix whatever was wrong, but they don't. They just want to sanitize it and wipe it away. So they're now deciding what is said and what you can learn in schools and what you can even see in a free museum.
Now, our history is our history, and we can learn from it. What we can't do is erase it. So, they're doing that exact same move in medicine. So the maternal mortality dashboards were quietly taken offline. The CDC offices that count who dies and why have been gutted. Health disparity research defunded. Disease detectives gone. Bury the evidence. No data, no crisis.
And let's not even talk about the money, right? They found money to have the largest fireworks show in American history, still causing smog in DC today, for a taxpayer-funded birthday party with a Ferris wheel and state fairgrounds fenced across the National Mall. They found the money for all of that, and only a few people actually showed up. They found money to repaint the Lincoln Memorial Reflection Pool, which the presidential motorcade drove through. What, Dr. Brown?
But the office that counts dead Black mothers could not afford it. Show me your budget and I will show you your values. Show me your budget and I will show you whose death you are willing to see.
Yeah, so Emmett Till understood something we teach in medicine. You cannot fix what you refuse to see. You cannot fight what you you refuse to count. You've got to talk about it. We've got to be accountable.
And ultimately, right, it's still there. The death is still there. The event is still there. Whether you count it or not, it has an impact. So, the midwives of the rural South kept records when hospitals would not let Black mothers through the door. Evidence, data. Fannie Lou Hamer, sterilized without her consent, organized so that it would be documented. Again, evidence and data. The whole lineage of Black women in medicine has been about one thing: make the harm visible, getting it on record, and refusing to let it be buried.
And now that is the fight that Nolan Wells' mom is in right now. His mom and his dad, right? The same fight that Emmett Till was in 1955. So she said, let the world see. So here is what we want you guys to do. There's 3 things.
Number 1, go to that museum, visit the NMAHC, or defend it in conversations with your friends and family. Send a donation. And this is before someone else decides what you are allowed to remember. Go see that record for yourself. See the casket, see the receipts, see the signs that keep being torn down of the site where his body was removed.
Yeah, all of it. And then number 2, call your representative and ask them one yes or no question. Do you fully support funding the system that count who dies in this country? Maternal mortality surveillance, the CDC disparity office, honest public data. Yes or no, just make them answer.
Number 3, say his name, Nolan Wells. Share this episode. Because the opposite of burying the evidence is keeping it in the light. They can cancel the fireworks, they can sanitize the museum, they can take dashboards offline, but they cannot make us stop looking or speaking out for what is right.
Yeah, we are the daughters of women who refuse to look away, our moms, our grandmothers, great-grandmothers. And we're still counting and we're still holding court ourselves. So the image that America saw this week, Dr. Brown.
A single photograph taken on the Washington, D.C. Metro on July 4th has become one of the most talked about images of the year. The now viral Reuters photo shows 33-year-old Bernita Balding, a Black mother of 2, sitting alone on a train surrounded by masked members of the white supremacist group Patriot Front after they marched through the nation's capital. In just a moment, this is the same group that was protesting against being masked during the COVID pandemic.
Right. The irony. Yeah.
The irony, Dr. Sloan.
Yeah. So the whole point of this conversation today was to let you see what 250 years in America has gotten us. Full circle, right? We're right back where we started from, because if Nolan Wells is not vindicated, his death justified, then we are exactly back at 1955 with Emmett Till. So let them see, this is America, 250 years. Stay informed, stay vigilant, and stay loud. We're AYA, contributors to MeidasTouch Network and proud members of the Meidas Mighty. Please share, subscribe, like, follow for more updates. Have a great week.
Bye, everyone.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.